Hi, I'm Chris. I've had several years of GMing, and I call myself a GM because I don't limit myself just to Dungeons and Dragons. However, my favorite genre is the fantasy, the high fantasy realm, and I'm doing this video on a subject that I don't think that has been touched extensively, and I think that at least from my perspective, it needs to be addressed. And the subject is the critical failure system for Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, etc. I have a problem with the die roll of a 1 on a d20 equating some horrible act in grandiose fashion. And the reason why I say that is because I think that the one equating this is antithetical to what you're trying to accomplish in a role-playing genre. Now, albeit, it's still fine if you have like a comical setting and everything is jovial and you know, no one cares and no one's really taking their character seriously. But I think in a real role-playing element, I think that it doesn't help the situation. It hurts it. And for starters, it's a 5% chance per act that the character is going to do something horrific. And for starters, I like to say that a lot of GMs, when they witness a die roll, they're already contemplating this in their head, and pretty much if you roll a 5 or lower, you're gonna fail. And it's kind of like the GM. I'm skewing the adventure to the party's ability. It's like the easiest way to skew the adventure to the party's ability, because you know the party members are going to get stronger, their abilities are going to get better, and you know you're always going to want a percentage of failure in there to keep them going. Because I mean, if everything you do at level 5 is a success, then what the hell's the need to go to level 10? Because you're already succeeding at everything you're doing. So, you know, I've seen this in GMs, like if it's a 5 or less, it's a failure. And I find that type of mentality destroys a role-playing element, or at least it doesn't help it. Now, I'm gonna give you an example, because not only do I run games, I play in them too. And I played in a game recently. It's one of my weekend games that I play in, and the GM tells me I'm playing a rogue. I love these roguish characters, and I'm playing a rogue, and I'm scouting out ahead. And not scout out ahead, you know, to go get myself killed, but the scouting out ahead just to let the party know, you know, what we're about to face, you know, what's going on, you know, to have some type of intel beforehand. So, you know, I tell them, you know, hey, I'm going to go down to the end of this tunnel, because that's kind of like my modus operandi. I go to where, you know, it splits or something happens, and then I come back and I fall back and let everybody know what's going on. Well, so the GM tells me, he says, roll 3 d20, and the first thing I think to myself, I'm like, you just put me at triple disadvantage. And I tell him so, and he says, no, 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 no. Well, there's three sections of the tunnel, and you have to roll sneak for each section. And I was like, yeah, but you didn't ask me to roll it sequentially. So I'm not rolling for the first section, followed by the second section, followed by the third section. And depending on what section has the actual monster in it, you know, that I'm trying to sneak by. So either we've established that all I have to do is fail on one die roll, or we're establishing that I'm rolling the dice for no reason. And here's my problem with it is that I have, if I'm rolling 3d20 to go down this hallway, I have a 15% chance that I'm going to roll a 1 on one of those die rolls. I have a 30% chance that I'm going to roll a 2 or less. I have a 45% chance that I'm going to roll a 3 or less. I have a 60% chance that I'm going to roll a 4 or less. And then magic number 5, I have a 75% chance that I'm going to roll a 5 or less. And I saw this way before when GMing my own games, and I realized that, you know, essentially you're kind of setting your players up for failure, in a sense, because we're gauging the game so far towards the player's depth and ability that even if they min-max it, they're kind of screwed. So it's like, oh man, I gave up all this other shit so I can be really good at stealth, but now here I'm in stealth, and he's like, well, that plus 13 bonus must be common around here, so we're just going to go ahead and skew it so they can hear at a perception of plus 10. No, 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 no. That sucks. So, and the main theme always goes back to this, is the players are the heroes. They are supposed to conquer over the baddies. That is their job, is to do so. And it is highly discouraging if everything that they do results in a failure because you haven't crunched the numbers. And it's very common. And see, and this is one of the things that I find is, and I've seen a lot of GMs do this, and if I play in a games, I constantly tell the GM, like, hey, look, do the numbers, crunch the numbers, and realize what you're doing. Okay, because, you know, like I jumped in a game not too long ago, and the guy, he swings his sword, and he's a barbarian. No, he's got a you know, the giant great axe, and he swings his axe, and he's got 3 attacks, and he rolls a 1, and his axe breaks apart and almost hits the guy next to him, and he falls face first and looks like a complete ass. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, you know, those are the die rolls. But here's the thing, is the barbarian has 3 attacks. The wizard has 1 attack. The barbarian is 3 times more likely to do something horrific with his melee weapon than the wizard is. I understand Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, and all these other systems are not perfect. But as a GM, we have the power to affect the game in such a way to make the game more realistic. Now, if what I'm doing in the game, as far as being a wizard, a rogue, a fighter, a cleric, or whatever, if my main power, my main abilities that I'm using constantly, and they're using those roles, and they're critically failing, it takes my character's image and it swirls it and steps on it. Now, I can understand if it's somebody that's not attuned to that skill set, or if it's a character that's doing something that's kind of beyond their ability. So, you know, say if it's a fighter, he's wearing full plate metal armor, and he's a dwarf, and his dexterity is an 8. And I mean, you know, it's the perfect storm for I can't sneak worth shit. And he says, I'm going to sneak up behind this guy. Well, yeah, when you roll a 1, it's going to look pretty bad. Now, if I have a rogue who's put a lot of points into that stuff and it's got proficiencies and all this other stuff, because for some reason he felt that he wanted to be the Bruce Lee of D&D characters, you know, he rolls a 1, you know, so it's not a success. So he fails at it. Does he fail horrifically? No. And I don't see any reason to make them fail horrifically. Now, let's take that same character. Now, we got this rogue. He's bad. He's good. He can do some pretty crazy stuff. He's got some great skills, and his stealth skill is up there. Now he decides that, okay, there's this 30-foot gap between this cliff and that cliff, and there's a sheer surface running along the side of it, and I just got done beating all 3 games of Prince of Persia. You know what I'm thinking? I'm gonna run right across here, triple backflip off of here, grab this rope here, and swing over to here. Now, yeah, so that may look a lot worse when those rolls come out, because he's doing something outside of his depth. You know, that's one thing. But if someone is doing something that they do normally, like for instance, a fighter, he's swinging that sword and he gets 3 attacks around. Now the logic behind it is that it's not so much as that he gets 3 attacks, and it's not so much as like the other characters get 1 attack around. It's that in their chain of hits, out of everything that they're doing, they're able to set up 1 attack, or they're able to set up 3 legitimate attacks. So he's swinging his sword back and forth and everything. He's been doing this with, you know, a level of professionalism that is beyond comprehension for someone that is just that hasn't done that in real life. You know, being able to be taught to hold on to their sword, you know, in the face of adversity is something that a warrior can do very successfully. And to say he has a 5% chance that every time he swings that weapon that it's going to fly out of his hands at a helicopter spin and it's going to smack into a stone and shatter to a million little pieces, that's a dick move. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do something and allow the character to save face. Who's to say that, you know, he's swinging his sword and everything, and retort the enemy comes down with a vicious blow, and to safeguard himself, he's got to deflect it in a way that is not conducive for the strength of the sword, and he breaks his sword in blocking that blow. You've just saved face on the character, and at the same time you were able to inflict a nasty penalty. Now, I wouldn't suggest doing that on the simple fact that I personally don't believe that critical failures in someone's main skills that represent their characters should be admonished to the extreme that it has been done in the past. And so now, if you even go into 5th edition now, you're looking at, like, you got character backgrounds. I mean, like, and a lot of us are old school players, and those that aren't old school players, they've been taught by the old school players. And I'm not saying that everybody is a heavy role player, but there are a lot of heavy role players out there, and they really get into their character. When I write my characters, I'm not kidding you. Every time I work with a new GM, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is like, you know what? I want everybody to write a background story on your character and go ahead and send it to me. And then I sent it to them, and they said, is there any way you can dumb it down to 1 page? because I will give an in-depth background to my character, because I like to really get into my character. I like to give him a history. I like to really get into it. I mean, I like role playing. I did it for years and everything, you know, ever since I was a kid, and I love it. I love getting into my characters. I love coming up with these crazy stories. I love, you know, trying to get, you know, just the raw emotion out of my character, and, you know, just put myself into that storyline and being able to play it out. Now, if I make that character and I'm getting up there a couple levels and everything, and I'm really, everybody knows this, level 5 to 7 is when, yeah, 4 to 7, level 4 to 7 is when the character concept really starts to come out. That's when you can really see what the player envisioned for his character, and to get that vision. And, you know, he's, you know, this guy is like the most intelligent guy around. He knows everything. He's got all those skills. He's been able to put the feats to get those extra skills. You know, he is the savant. He knows his stuff. So, and I've seen this happen before, and I'm sure everybody here has seen this happen before, where the wizard with the 18 intelligence that dumped a crap load of points into skills, and he really knows his stuff, and, you know, there's a skill check, and it involves knowledge, history, or knowledge, you know, whatever, and that wizard has that skill. And over here we have the 7th intelligence barbarian, and the barbarian does not have that skill. But guess who rolled a 20 and guess who rolled a 2? The barbarian rolled a 20 and the wizard rolled a 2. So now all of a sudden the barbarian magically knows the history of this noble family out in the middle of God knows where and everything, which happened to be the exact place where the damn wizard used to live. I don't even roll on these things. If I, as a GM, I like to, because I know the players love this. You know, you can look in their eyes and you can just tell that they love it when they see their character, you know, shine and what they can do. So I don't roll this. If we go into a knowledge check or something like that, I automatically just look over at my guys that have that knowledge related skill, and I say, okay, this is what y'all know. You know what I mean? And if we're out in the middle of the woods and there's something sneaking up on it and everything, even if I catch the person that has perception and the enemy gets that first attack, I'm gonna look at him or her and I'm gonna say, you hear something, and then right when you turn around it jumps at you or whatever, because that gives them the knowledge, you know, that they were able to spot it. You know what I mean? Maybe they weren't able to spot it as quick as they'd like to and everything, but they were able to spot it, and it allows their character to shine in that element. You know, and one of the big ones, and this is one of my great examples, is that when I have my druids or my rangers go hunting and foraging for stuff like that, if I have them roll, I have them roll to one end, and the end is that it's not if they're going to find food, unless they're in like a desert area, or they're, you know, some other highly inhospitable place that wouldn't be able to really provide food. In the event that, you know, they're in there or whatever, then we'll do a legitimate roll. But if not, the roll represents how much they get and how quickly they get it. I mean, so if they roll like a 20, I mean, they come back with a huge cache of food and goodies for everybody to eat, you know, and really play it up and everything, you know, berries, a deer, you know, like, you know, and they get all, you know, they love it. But I don't use critical failures the way that they used to do it, and I think that the system is archaic to use it like that, because it damages a character's concept, especially if, and then this is a big one, is what if you have a bunch of bad rolls? And I know someone's thinking here, but like, well, you know, there are days when you have a bunch of good rolls and you feel really good. Yeah, I'm not saying take away the good rolls. I'm saying that if the character is extremely good in this area, I'm saying that let their failures be failures. But there's no reason why they should fail and look horrific in the process. You know, there's no reason why they should have to get a pride shot for doing something that they should be able to do within reason. You know, a fighter should be able to hold on to a sword unless someone hits him with a sword breaker, or does some type of trip maneuver that's for the purpose of taking the weapon out of their hands. The maneuver actually takes the weapon out of their hands. Now that's one thing, but to say, oh well, you rolled a 1, so you threw the blade, you know, like an idiot. And so I'm saying I don't do that, and I think that when you start doing this slapstick humor stuff like that, that's fine if you're playing that type of genre. But if you're not playing that slapstick, you know, we're not taking anything really serious type of game, you're going to turn your serious game into that. Or at least you're going to push it in that direction because you're not keeping it serious. And that's what I got to say on that. You guys take what you like and, you know, toss out what you don't.